Okay, hello, Mark Session again, and today we will build a hand from scratch. Now, first of all, there are many tutorials in this. There are many techniques. I'm showing how to use Stager in this case, how to use Sculptris Pro, and a couple of tricks that you might want to know of. And it's not a fast process, but surely it is an enjoyable one. Okay, so first of all, we'll jump start with a 3D sphere, drag it out, press T to enter edit mode, zoom out, and Shift P to have a floor. I don't need perspective at this case because I will mostly edit this guy. So Shift F to show the wireframe, polyframe, and we want to turn it into polymesh, make polymesh 3D, and the starter material is just the basic material here, and Ctrl W to change the color. Which one is a little bit brighter? I like it this way. Now, first of all, this will be the palm. So we are starting with the palm, and I'm rotating, holding down the Shift key to be able to rotate with 5-degree incrementals, which one is good. And what I don't like about the basic rotation is that we have X, Y, Z on. So I'll set it to Y, and now we have kind of an upright position for rotating. Okay, here we go. And we are already in the gizmos, so why not? We can go with extender and create a palm by extending this guy in multiple directions like this. Okay, so we have a little bit narrow, which was good. Pulled a little bit further, and I like this basic initial shape. Maybe it is a bit fat, but to avoid, we can extend it a little bit more. Okay, so now it is not that fat. We will flatten it anyway. Okay, so here we are, and but more than that, this extend has something that could become really handy. We have this value here, and this little cone has an effect on the resolution, and we can add more and more edges. Now, by default, it uses creasing, and we have another cone, and that cone is on and off creasing. Okay, so this yellow cone. What you need to remember that creasing is not your friend here, so you want to get rid of it, and that way you don't see that double edge. Okay, so if you see that double edge, something goes wrong. And we have a sculptable mesh. It's not perfect, but at least we have quite a lot of polygons. That could be handy. Okay, so this will be good. Maybe we want to add more things to the whole. Let me accept this, and the gizmo, and a deformer. Now, the reason I wanted to use a deformer, because usually a hand, if you look at it from front, so when we have fingers here going through in this direction, usually there's an arc and there's a thickness change, and also it has some arc on the side. But right now I'm just curious about creating a nice little arc all around. So for doing that, hold down Ctrl and Alt, highlighting the points I want to move, Ctrl Alt, and I like to do it in 3D because sometimes if you pick a point, it would just drag the point itself instead of dragging all the things. And when you are touching a point, the gizmo will update to that point. Okay, so this I think that's good to know. Go in front, lifting this up to create this arc. Now it's somewhat arc. You can see I like this shape as it's going. Good. And more than that, I can highlight all. So Ctrl Alt, tapping, everything is showing, and using scale and flatten these things down. Okay, so it's really, you don't have to use taper all the time. You can use the deformer. There's many options within deformer. Okay, very good. Now it's time to accept this, and moving forward and building something for the thumb, because the thumb has a huge part. Now this hand will be a right hand, and the fingers will pointing towards us in the front view. So I will create another subtool, insert another sphere, jumping and moving with the sphere. Actually, this one's good. The same thing, I'm holding down Shift key and rotating along the x-axis and stretching it out with an extender and just make it a little bit longer. Yes, we need some thickness, and probably overall we can go back to Gizmo 3D and scale it down. Scale it down, and going back with Deformer and see it. I'm sorry, not Deformer. Delete this one, and with the extender. So here's our extender, and it remembers the settings, which one is good, and just to make it a little bit longer here. All right, and that's good. And accept, and here we go. Now it's time to move it, scale it, rotate it, bend it, whatever. I will just flatten it down a little bit, and the position is a little bit interesting, but before we do that, we might need a deformer and reduce the number of these points. So we have plenty of points around. We don't need that many in general. Less points, easier to control. Usually it's not that sophisticated to control, but it's a little bit easier. So I will just band these, Control and Alt, tapping outside, inverts the selection, Control and Alt, and holding on just these points, and now moving them. Okay, this will be good. Right, going back, Deformer, Accept, and rotate this. Now, if I'm holding the Alt key, it releases this little lock, so I can move away the 3D gizmo, start rotating this around, even more, pushing it in, and this will be the base of our thumb. Okay, so that's the goal, to make it. I'm not really worried about to make it 100% super perfect. It has a slant usually, so we can go Q and B and V with a large move brush. So Shift F, and I can just drag this a little bit. Okay, so that's the kind of a side of the hand. Okay, good. Now starting with the fingers just in a second, but before we do that, we can actually create the wrists, and the same thing. Insert, sphere, move. And the thickness is very similar to the thickness that we had already, because it's just a base sphere. It has an advantage because all of the brushes are working pretty good. So even if you are changing later on the overall size, sculpting in a generic size with the ZBrush has its benefits. Okay, so going on and use extender. Actually, I was forget about rotating, so before I do that, let me go back to Gizmo 3D and rotate, Shift F. This is why Shift F is so useful, because you can see the orientation of the these wires. Okay, yeah, extender, and extend it forward, extend it, and this is basically just the wrist. Maybe a little bit more in overall thickness, and we can add some length, but that's it practically. We'll do it with a brush later on, and we can stretch it all the way. Right, now going back to the gear, accept it, accept. My pen tablet is a little bit off, so sometimes it's not accepting the changes. But here we go. Okay, this is a good initial shape. We can later on change things. I think some deformer and Control Alt and selecting these and stretching can help. That's good. Okay, we can work on the roundness later on, but right away it will be enough, and maybe a stretch along the sides. Yep, a slight stretch. Okay, so now we have an overall wrist, and we can make the changes. I'm going to go with the brush. All right, and just a little bit of an angle. Usually there's an angle, so the bottom part is somewhat flat with the palm. And yeah, I like that angle. Works well. Okay, now here we go with the fingers. The fingers will be very much the same, ideally, and these parts could be really handy because we can adjust the angles, and we can get an impression of the overall structure and sizes. But this sphere, so here we go. This is the base sphere. Now what I will do, I will just quickly holding down control and drag and drop it and count it. Okay, you can see now these, if I do these are just way too big for the fingers. So let me undo this quickly and rescale it, and just hold control and place them, and it's still big. Okay, so just a little bit lower and move it even closer, so it's pinky, control, and of course these won't be the same, but in general now I see that we have a good size value. This one looks good. Okay, so I can set it back and now hit this button to make sure that we are in center. And what I will do is I will use local symmetry on. Let me move it away, move it to the center. So this will be the middle finger. Okay, that's the largest finger, 99%, and we will start with that. And to model, it's a good idea to have a local symmetry on. We are not worrying about this yet, so symmetry X is not turned on yet because basically we don't need it at this stage. We will still use the extender to have it elongated. So go there, gear, extender, make it longer, and just going back to the gear and Gizmo 3D and move, and in general I'll pull this up and see for myself. Okay, so where we are, there's it. Okay, so that's the base for the finger. I think it's not long enough, so let me go back to extender and pull it a little bit further. Okay, I'm not worried about the resolution here because we will use the Sculptris Pro add-on here, but in general we want to have it in a good balance. Okay, let me accept and move it slightly. Now what else? This is just one digit, just one segment of the finger. So moving further, we have a couple polygroups, and it's better if we have a single polygroup for this model. So I'm pressing Ctrl W to have a single polygroup, and I'm holding down Control, and when Control held down, I can move forward and extend it. Okay, so in general, this is the palm, and the fingers are somewhat similar in length as the palm. So definitely this is way too long. So what I will do is I will use the just the scale, so not worrying about if these are distorting, just scale it a little bit down. Here this model is a little bit off, so I will pull the whole thing a little bit back to the finger to have this bump at the knuckle on the top of this edge, which you see here. But before I do that, I will press Ctrl W to make sure that we have now two different polygon groups, which can help a lot with selection. When I did this, Ctrl W, masking is gone. So if I'm holding down the Alt key and pressing on the location button, and now it will jump back, and I can hold down Alt key, locks open, so I can move the gizmo freely and move it back and pull it a little bit in. Let me lift this up slightly. Okay, so here's this joint, which was good. Here we have it's a little bit rising there. Okay, good. And we need more. We need the final digit. So where is it? So what I will do is holding down Control, clicking on this particular polygroup, and because it automatically highlights the things, but if the orientation of the gizmo is off, I can use Alt key and press on this location and press on this reset. And now, because it's horizontal, it won't be any problem. So I can just hold down Control and drag and copy another one for myself. Now here we are, which was good. The overall length, let me just rotate it back. The overall length is too much for this, so definitely we need to shorten it furthermore. Maybe it's just too short, so I will leave it as it is. And there's an overlap here. So you can see there's an overlap, and we have the living mask on there. Yes, we are now sharing the same polygroup with this previous middle digit. Okay, so here we are. What's next? So first of all, we want to go draw mode, Control and Tab to invert, Control and Tab to keep the mask this way. No, inverting the mask, and Control W because the mask will be receiving a new polygroup. You can also use, so if you don't want to flip the mask and everything, if you don't know about this, you can go to polygroups, and we have auto groups there. So auto groups will just recognize that you have parts that are just intersecting but not welded. So with auto groups, you can create new polygon groups. Okay, so this is looking good. Now, what else? We can sculpt right away, but before we do that, it's just easier if we making a couple copies and check for the overall proportions, how this thing looks. So in this case, we have this finger line, so I can just duplicate, press W, holding down Alt key, hitting on this 0 icon, like the location, and holding down Alt, and now moving this away. Okay, so we have this one, and I don't want to keep it. I'm just scaling it down, slightly adjusting this, and holding them, copying it, duplicate, and just move it away, and even scaling it this direction and scaling in overall, so uniform scale and scale along the z-axis. In this case, the z-axis. So that will be like that. Okay. So here we go. Probably that pinky is short, definitely short, but just to stretch it out a bit. That's it. And of course, we have to have the bigger finger and duplicate and move it away, and holding the Alt key and just simply using scale and nothing else. Scale on this axis. This finger is it's not a thin finger, it is just slightly shorter usually. So these two are the ring finger and the pinky finger. They are small in diameter, but this one is not. Okay, so in general, I like the overall. Probably the tip is a bit longer than necessary, so that I can still recognize it. And maybe this shape. So of course also we have to sculpt on this bottom part, but this will be fine. Okay, so let me just delete all of these. So delete them one by one. This one deleted. It's better if you have polyframe on. In that case, you will recognize easier and you can follow it a little bit better than what you actually have. And I'm in move mode and holding down Control and tapping on this model. Now it's masking, holding down Alt, center, and reset angles, holding down Alt, pulling it back, and I will make it shorter, even shorter. Okay, good. So that's one of the take-home messages. Probably this should be also a little bit shorter, and this one Control and tapping and pulling it back, and the overall finger, let me click away and pull this whole thing a little bit up. Alright, so that's some of the good proportion. Of course, we need to play with the thumb, but before I do that, I will create the basic shape of this finger. Okay, so that's the next part to create the shapes of the finger. Draw mode, and it's time to activate X symmetry. And don't forget to have local symmetry on, and we need a couple brushes, like the Flattened Brush, for example. Let's BFA Flattened Brush, because Shift F, we have this geometry, and I can flatten it down. Now, usually this is a little bit strong here, so I will reduce the intensity. Just flatten it a little bit. Here, flatten it a little bit. Flatten. This one is not that nice, so I will use smooth to make it less kind of blocky. And BMV move brush, and just pinch this very end to have a little bit more rounded shape. And in the side view, I'm pulling it back, and we have quite a lot of resolution. Actually, it's even more than we need. So I'll pull this back. Here we already have, and as you see, because it's a single model, like these are not separated subtools. These are subtools, multiple elements included in one subtool. We can sculpt them all together. So just adding this roundness, pulling this back in, pulling this back in. This roundness may be too much for this. And pulling, adding some belly for the fingers. Okay, so that's from that view. Of course, some simple flattening around the side, BFA with a low intensity U can help a lot. So, and we have symmetry on. Let me rotate this. If you're not familiar with the sculpting like this, you can turn on a material that's a little bit shiny, and sometimes that can help a lot to see the highlights. So yeah, we have a highlight. Maybe it was strong, but going back, so you can switch to a different material to have a better control over this. Okay, good. Now definitely we need to use the move brush, BMV brush, and pull this up. Okay, so pulling this up, this will generate a knuckle. Okay, this will generate the knuckle, and I can actually just drag this and pull this out, which will look a little bit odd, but let me go to transparent mode. You can see now we have a kind of a spike that's good for the tendon that we have here at the top. So that's an easy way to shape that tendon and have some influence in it. Now here comes in a game something that we have to talk about, and it's very useful in many situations. This is the Sculptris mode. So let me turn on Sculptris mode. I will switch to a BCB clay buildup brush, and with that I can turn on Sculptris mode. If I am in BMV move brush, Sculptris mode is off, and it's not the luckiest thing, because you're moving this, and if Sculptris mode is active, we can actually generate geometry on the fly, but we can't do it. But we can switch BCB and turn on Sculptris, and we can hold down. Can you see how the colors changed? We can hold down the Shift key, and that is smooth. And with the smooth, when the smooth touches this grind, this surface, it will evaluate the overall surface properties, and then it will fill it with a little bit more dense, better geometry that fits better to the shape. And this is created on the fly. Now here, before we are going crazy about the Sculptris thing, we need to create a basic fingernail. So let me turn off. We have a hotkey, by the way, and that is the backslash. Depending on your keyboard, it's usually somewhat close to your enter button. Let me turn this off, and I will use extract to create the fingernails. So just masking. Okay, let me see that. Control Alt. I was too ambitious with this. All right, it's somewhat rounded. Yeah, it's good. Okay, so Shift F. Look for the overall. Usually it's somewhat in the middle. So if you have a bit like this. This is the length of the digit. Usually the finger ends up somewhat closer to the middle. And we're going to extract, It's at the bottom of the subtools. If you haven't used this, extract, and I guess it will be large. Let me turn off transparency. Extract again. Extract again. Yep, half is enough. So 0.01 should be enough. Let me go to extract. Okay, not bad. The edges are a little bit jaggy, so to smooth it out, we can crank up the smoothness here. Oh, it's not bad. Actually, this is a little bit thin for me, and not much, but let me 0.01.15. Okay. Yeah, because it's easier to sink into the surface. It's more forgiving as a geometry if you have some thickness. Right, and the smoothness, I'm not satisfied with the smoothness, so I will turn off this little thing. Let me turn on the magnifier. So here we go. We have this little circle, and you can click on it, and now it will use a different algorithm, and that will create an even smoother extraction. So I will just go and accept this. And we have masking by default, so control drag, masking is there. And don't forget, you have masking on the finger as well. So I'm holding the Alt key, tapping on the finger. And right away, I like to do this control and drag to delete the extraction. Okay, Alt and clicking on the fingernail. Sometimes it will not catch up. So I can use N, like Nora, the hotkey, to access to this. And this is really dense. We have so many unwanted polygons. It's just a nightmare to work with. So what we can do is we can go right away geometry, symmetry is turned on, which was good. ZRemesher, and reduce the ZRemesher to quite a low, so 0.2. And hit ZRemesher and look for the results. Okay, it's dense, but what else? To make it a little bit smoother, we can go and where we are, deformation, and we can go and polish this. And believe it or not, I will do again this ZRemesher thing once it is polished. This polish was not the last one. Okay, I will stop here. Geometry and ZRemesher, and hit ZRemesher with the same values. And yeah, it's a little bit, we have a little bit less polygons around. Okay, so move, B and V, move brush, and we can massage it with a fairly large size. We can push this in and start working things around. So here we are, select the fingers and select the finger and push this finger back in, smooth this out and push this in. Okay, just add more, select the fingernail and just Shift F. And yes, from the front we also have an arc. So yeah, we have to take care of selecting the fingers again and pulling it down. And now we can use a simple build-up brush, BCB, and turning on Sculptris Pro. And let me turn on the polyframe, Shift F. So I can hold down Alt key and push it in. Oh, it's way too strong. U and intensity, reduce, holding down Alt key, push it in a little bit. Okay, it was snapping. And selecting the other thing, Alt, and push this in. And yeah, Shift F. Okay, so we can build up this area around the finger, which was good. And yes, we have this basic center. And can you see it's updating on the go? And if I'm using the Shift and smooth out, and reduces the geometry. And because we have these models as separated parts, we can sculpt them, and in the end it will look like one. So I can fill this up and use smooth, fill this up a little bit, adding more to the joint to the side to give some volume here, and just smooth it out. And here usually we have some bumps, and here usually we have some bumps. And of course, that's it. So here we go. That is it. Of course, the finger is B and V, and it's just way too wide in here, so we want to reduce that width. And this is not rounded enough, so I'm holding the Alt key and pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. Okay, and to add some edge to the nail, I'm pulling this out. And BPI, pinch brush. I'm using some pinching. And now we have a little bit of an edge going around. This should be smoothed out a little bit more. And selecting back again, smoothing, and okay, it's good. Right, I won't make it perfect, but we'll create a general overall relatively acceptable finger. So let me fill this, and before I'm going on the details, I will add some slight bends later on and smooth this out. Definitely, it's not that blocky. And we have these knuckle things going on here, so we definitely need to add one. And there's a center, and then these are going on the side. So this is how it looks usually. And just soften it up, and just having that model. We can add more volume later on, but that's good for now. The blockiness here is definitely, we're not happy with that, so let me remove that blockiness. Smooth things out, fill this a little bit, and if we want, we can use the BD as Damien standard and cut a few things in, like here, to make it a little bit easier on the bend side. Okay, so cut in here, like just overall general shapes, and here it is. Going to perspective. So that's one finger. Now, before I complete this, I will bend the things all together. But for now, this will be okay. And let me copy another one. And once that is copied, we can go further. So subtool, here's the finger. But before I do that, I want to make this fingernail part of the model. Okay, I can always split this up if I wish, because it will be a separate polygroups. But right now, I will just have this finger above the extract, the nail, and go to merge and merge down. So now these are one part. If you want to divide something, you can always go to split and look for the different part, like split hidden, for example. So you can hold down Ctrl Shift, click on a polygroup you want to see, and if you press split hidden, now you have the fingers back. So we have finger and we have the nails. But I will just go back and merge down, and now these two are merged. Okay, and duplicate and W and holding down the Alt key. And if I'm pressing this location button, this relocate button, something will happen. Now you need to know that when you have symmetry activated, it will not snap to the exact very center of the model. It will snap to one side or the other side. So I will just turn off X and holding down Alt key, and I'm pressing now on this location, and it will snap back in the center. And I'm still holding Alt and hit on this reset orientation button, and now we have a clear orientation of the model, and I can hold on Alt key, drag it up to the center of the finger, actually the root of the finger, it's better to say that, and now we have this model. Now, before I do any change, I will do something that can help us in the work, and that is staging this model. So here in the geometry, we have stager on its own, and I'm hitting on home stage. So this home stage, it is in a vertical state. Everything is normal, lined, straight. It's easy to use symmetry and everything. So for that, now I will use the scale a little bit, scale it down a little bit. Not much, but a little bit scaling down. So it will be a little bit shorter, but honestly, it's this digit, so this part should be much shorter, and that can help us a lot. So let me go back, Shift F, and to have it a little bit better view, I will turn on magnifier, and in polyfree we have line and fill, and because the density of the mesh could be really annoying, you can turn on the line, and now we have only the colors. Let me go back, and it's a little bit easier to follow which one is selected and how we are manipulating this. Okay, so I'm holding down Control and tapping on this model, and holding down Alt to reset in the center and reset the scale and reduce the overall length a little bit. Okay, and I will also pull this back, right? So now it's a little bit off in the angles, and we'll also do Control and tap to reorient the things, and now Control and tap to select the others. And usually the length of these bones in the middle, usually it's somewhat similar, but this particular bone is that's shorter. So this one. All right, good. Now we are thinking in an arc. Let me go back from perspective. We are fully in front, and what you need to know: Control and tap outside. Control drag, so everything is moving when I'm moving this. So usually we have this one at the highest peak, this was a little bit lower, and this was also slightly rotated, not much, but slightly rotated. We can rotate a little bit outwards as well, and then we can play with the other elements, that the band, the angle of the other elements, and here we should take care of this angle. Now, let me go back. Front, top, viewport, and B and V, move. I have no symmetry on. I don't have it. So I'm just pulling this and having a big one. I'm pulling this because it's somewhere pointing to the center of the wrist. Okay, it's not. These are not connected there. These are just pointing there. Okay, so that's how it goes. Alright, so the angle, there is kind of an angle here with the wires coming in. Okay, and I can hold on Control, and maybe this should be a little bit angled overall, like this. Yep, okay, and draw back and pull this back in a little bit slightly. So I like that angle. Side view. Good. Okay. And smooth out. We can move. Smooth will refresh the whole geometry. Okay, so we have now that angle, and there's some changes here. W, and holding Control and tapping on this area, and Control and tapping outside to invert the whole thing, and holding down Alt key to be able to transform these and rotate slightly. And I'm adjusting my gizmo, 3D gizmo, to fit with the digits that I want to bend. And now I can bend fairly easily. Pull it back in, pull it a little bit higher. Okay, so there's a slight bend. Okay, and Q, and also I want to select these guys. So what I will do, I'm holding down Control and Shift, tapping on this very end. Control and Shift and drag outside, inverting selection, Control and Shift and tapping on this very end, Control and drag outside, and now I have this model. I will select Control A and Control Shift tap to see everything, and Control tap to invert the selection, and W and Alt and snap and pull this Alt, holding it, moving it up, and rotate with the finger. That's it. Good. So now we have it in a bent form. Good. All right. Let me add some angle here as well. So the model is selected. I will not use stager in this case because it's in the very center. So Alt key to set this to the original position. X was turned on, so let me turn off X. reset, holding down Alt, move it to the base, to the root, slight rotation, and pulling it a little bit back, and of course draw mode, and we have move, and pulling on move, and yes, and holding on smooth, and it will just eat some of the geometry, which is good. Okay, cool. Now moving back, we want to add the angles. So to do that, holding the Control and W, tapping on the model, Control and tapping outside, inverting the selection, holding down Alt, tapping on the location, tapping on the recentering, realignment, and pull this up and pull it in the middle of center of rotation, and just start rotating this. And there's a slight rotation going on. Okay, so it looks like a natural wall. All right, this natural look is actually quite beneficial. All right, so it's a good thing to have. Now I see the line, and these will be okay. It will be fairly relatively easy to create a pinky and the index finger. But before we do that, I will make a copy. So let me just go back in the mode and have this, what we have. Here we are. So I was going back on the under history, and we'll duplicate this model now. And select the original one, and going forward in history. And select this guy, and move it aside. So that could be good for the thumb. Okay. So what I did, I had a model I was sculpting on a lot. I was going back on the under history, made a duplication when the under history was at my preference, and then selected the original and dialed back up the under history to get back the result of the end. But here we have a model, and we want to get rid of this top part. So draw mode, and I'm holding down Control and Shift, tapping on this model, Control and Shift and drag, invert the selection. So I want to delete what is hidden now. So in geometry, and this is a benefit. So when you are using Sculptris Pro, you don't have to worry about having multiple resolutions. And that means you don't have to worry about always deleting and changing things up with the resolution is delete higher than lower, because you are somewhat independent from that. And we can go easily modify topology. We can do many things, cutting other things, because we have only one actual resolution, but it's changing locally. So I could go in where we are, delete it, and the rest of it is gone. So here we go. This will be the thumb. Now a thumb is a little bit different in the look. So usually there's it's somewhat wider. So first of all, BVM somewhat wider, and yes, we have to have local symmetry enabled. And let me smooth this out and pull and add some angles. Yeah, here we go. And this one should be much bigger. And the width should be bigger than the original. And usually there's not, depending on the person, but sometimes this nail here is a bit more curvy. Okay, so it's not true for everyone, but as I see, there's something like that. Okay, and this point is usually it's more articulated, it's stronger. I think I should change to a BCB brush, because it's just pushing things around and nothing beneficial. And there is some kind of a better blockiness in thumb. So the sides are a little bit more articulated, a little bit stronger. Okay, filling this up, and B and V, and pull. Okay, again, in this time, I won't make it any perfect. I just want to make it believable. I'm using Alt key to add some volume on there. which was good. As I'm rotating, I see that here missing some volume using Alt. Sculptris is creating some mess around with the polygroups, I guess. Yeah, okay. Right. It's funny. Let me undo this. Hopefully we can somehow get rid of it. And holding Shift. And now if I don't touch it, it will not mess with those. Okay, here we are. Good. Right. So this will be the thumb. And here we have a hole. Really? Okay, I will just go in and Geometry and Cap Holes, or close holes. Great, and holding on Control Shift, select, invert, Control Alt, tap on this, invert, and Control W, and hopefully I can fix this. That's good. Okay, some troubleshooting on the fly, which was always fun to do. Okay, well, let me quick select this, hold on Alt key, and turn off Symmetry, because in general I'm posing it now. So I don't want to have Symmetry because, you know, if I'm pressing Alt, it will not snap to the center. It will center to either side. So I'm holding Alt and moving this. And this could be the initial pose for this finger. Maybe I will lift this a little bit higher. And as it should be the initial pose, I will go in Stager and set this to home stage. Now, what I didn't done, but here we have this model. Let me hit on Alt and click on this, and it has a home stage, but it don't have the target stage, and this is the target stage for this particular finger. So when I'm hitting on Switch Stage, it is actually messed up because I was modeling so much. Okay, so it will work on this finger. Excuse me for the mess. So here we go, and I will relocate this. Select and look for the position. Okay, very side view. Yeah, that's it. Pulling it. This just happens if you forgot to add and set the stages. Okay, good. Well, there we go. Slight rotation. I'm looking for the end where this tip ends. So it's somewhere. It's a little bit over this knuckle point, but it is somewhere in line with this. I think this finger is a bit too much. So when I'm projecting this line, this should be a little bit behind this joint. So that's my hint. And in the front, it is 90 degrees, so it's perpendicular with the plane of the palm. And this is kind of a relaxed state. I can open it a little bit more, but not much. I think that should be enough. And of course, we can add some more arc. We can open this up a little bit to see more of it. But yeah, this is somewhat a relaxed state of the finger. And as it is, I will set it as a target stage. And now if I'm switching stages, I can go back and move on it and work on it. So X, and I can reset this, reset the orientation and everything, and I can switch the stage. You can see, so I can all the time switch the stage. So I want to sculpt something, switch stage, sculpt here symmetrically. I can use X and make some changes, and then can go back and switch stage. Here we go. Boom. All right, that's good. Now let me. Actually, I'm satisfied with this, so I won't go crazy. Time is ticking, so let us just move forward with the other finger. So this was the original finger, and now we can duplicate it and move it away. Okay, we had a mask going on, so let me delete this and select this model, Control and drag to remove the mask, duplicate, press W to move it away. And honestly, the colors are a little bit disturbing because we have very similar colors that the other finger has. Okay, so what we can do is there is an automatic regrouping in polygroups. We have regroup visible. And now we have regroups like this for here. And this is the original. I will keep it just sentimentally. Regroup visible, and now we have more. So it's a little bit easier on the eye to recognize where we are going. So X symmetry is turned off. We don't care about that. I'm using Alt to release this and rotate and changing the angles. So pulling this a little bit back in and rotate it slightly. Okay. So when it opens, always think of it when the hand is closing, it's much more like grabbing on a sphere. It's not like the fingers are not running parallel. They're just always pointing towards the middle of the palm when you are clenching your fist. And definitely we want to not scale that much. We want to actually scale the digits instead of scaling the finger. Usually this digit is the thickest of a finger. So this is because of the huge amount of power and force that you have to create and generate. So what I will do, I'm holding Control and tapping on this particle model, holding Alt and tapping on recentering, and looking for the orientation. So the orientation, I will hold Alt and make some subtle changes and stretch it out in this direction slightly, not much, slightly. This is the strongest finger, and pulling this back a bit. Okay, so it's pulling this back to create an arc with the digits. All right, so the length is not equal. Pulling this back, make it a little bit wider. That because there is much strength on it. I'm holding Control, tapping on the next digit, or if not, now it's working. Holding Alt, recenter it, reorient it. This orientation is not working, so let me undo and reorient it manually while holding down the Alt key and pulling this back up and changing its slight length change. Okay, so depending on the person, but usually this finger is slightly shorter than the middle finger. Not in all cases, but usually. I have this finger of mine is actually shorter than my ring finger. It's just it's a little bit odd, but you know, it's a different anatomy, so we are not the same. Okay, drag, and what I will do, go Q and Control, select this, invert, hide this, and Control A, invert, so show everything, and Control and tap to invert selection and W. So we have now all this last one, and I'm holding the Alt key, pulling this, and just pull this back to have a better intersection. And I will bend this a little bit better. So I will bend this a little bit better. Okay, so that's how it goes. There's a yeah. In general, it's looking good. What else we can do? I can hold on Alt, recenter it, and pull it up, and we can just slightly open, or no, not exactly. Let me delete the mask, and just we'll push this a little bit in, and yeah, okay, that's how it goes. All right. And later on, to have the personality and focus on all the details, you have to model. You can't avoid to model the fingers individually. So there's no way to do that. And this should be pointing, you know, towards the center. Holding Shift. And yeah, and pull it out. Good. Right. Smooth and pull. So we can always smooth it a little bit and pull. That was too much. Okay, and the pinky. So where we are, pinky finger. Select this guy, holding down Alt, tapping on this model, and make sure we have no mask live. Subtool and duplicate and move. And symmetry is not turned on, so I will move it away. Good. And relocate the position of the gizmo, still holding Alt, looking for every angles. There is a slight angle change, so I will move it to the outside a little bit, usually. Scale it down, definitely. Okay, scale it down. Arc, that the arc is going on. And this is heavily tilted. Okay, this is usually heavily tilted. Alright, can you see that the distance is somewhat even here? The knuckle, this point usually it is not that articulated. So the first thing that you can do is by the move, just pushing this a little bit back. Usually it's not that articulated at all. You will see cavities more than protrusion, but that's how it goes. Okay, and we need to reduce a few lengths further, so we want to make it more smaller. So holding on W, Control, and tapping on the dead center, and holding on Alt to reorient the gizmo based on the visuals that we see, and scale it, not overall, just maybe the length, maybe the width a little bit, just a tiny bit to match with the other fingers. Okay, Q and drag, hide it away, invert, hide it away, invert, Control A, show everything, W, and holding on Alt to pull this, and pull this up, and holding Alt, maybe if we wish, no, it's just, I would just bend it a little bit further. It was not enough. So what I will do is, well, hold down Control, tap, drag, hide this, invert, and Alt, move it, and there we go, and slide angle there. Okay, it is better, right? So it's a nice relaxed hand, and yes, of course we have to worry about those parts as well, and that will be up next. Q. Okay, here we go. Shift F. So these are the things. It's a basic hand with a relative ease and kind of a good proportion. So what we have to do is selecting now these chunks and using Shift P. I will turn off the floor, and using a clay type of brush, BCB, clay buildup, Sculptris Pro on, and I will actually use Move Brush first and pull this guy back in. I'm going to hide it away a little bit. And I don't have reference in front of me, so it's one thing is going from scratch instead, right? Good. We need more volume here, definitely. Just smoothing it out. Later on, we need to add this. This will be also a good point. There is the webbing, so I will pull this out until it moves. Yeah, there we go. So here there is this volume that's going on, and of course that's as a round, as a first round. This is okay. Selecting the other model, the palm part, and it's fairly big in size, and smoothing and lifting this up, and I will use a flattened brush because here we have the finger webs, and those are not that visible yet. Here, whoa, where we are. What kind of issues there? Smoothing. Yeah, smooth this thing out before it gets wrong. Okay. Selecting this guy, smoothing things out. Okay, which was good. Good. Yeah, so selecting the palm again, and the BFA flatten brush, and flatten this area. Maybe this strength is off, and yeah, now you can see it better. So I'm pushing this back a little bit, smoothing, pushing. You intensity. Where are you? Okay, here we go. So now we have it's kind of an angle. That's good. And here we can use a build-up brush, but before we do that, this guy, we can add more, BCB, and fill this up, a little bit of smoothness, good. Adding up, okay, adding, smoothing things. And here it's not that articulated, so there's something. More than that, adding some pads, adding some pads, adding some pads. Here we definitely need more. There's a vabbing around here, so this one is selected, and there's a vabbing. Okay, these are not parts yet, so I can sculpt them together, but there's just adding more. Here's the palm selected, adding more. Just smoothing things out. Good. This was not needed here, so let me just recess this. Smooth things out. This one is smooth. Smooth things. Okay, smooth things. Yep. Good. Okay, so we have the very basic part of it, and now we can actually combine the palm and the wrist. Here the palm, I was a little bit, it's short, the palm is short. It must be a little bit wider. So B and V, and adding more width to it, pulled, tapping, smooth more rounded. I've used smoothing quite a lot, adding some heft to it. Yeah, this would be better. Perspective is off. It's always a help if we have sometimes perspective on. Good. Right, now select the wrist, pull this back, BCB, clay brush, adding to it, maybe reduce from here, and just a little slightly cut it off. Here there's some cavity, and then we can add back the little tendons that's going on here. So that's it, and we can elongate it, we can cut it off, but right now I just want to weld all the things together, not the fingers, but the palm area. So there you go. And to do it is we have these three chunks, so I will select these and merge down, press OK, and Shift F to see it, right Ctrl W, it's one polygon group now. I will actually dynamesh it to weld, and where we are, here we go with this one, weld the top one, merge down, yes, okay, Ctrl W, single poly group, and I can go and add geometry, dynamesh it, Shift F, and see the line. Oh, it's way too dense. For this height, it's just too much, so I'll reduce it to 32, tapping on a model, and drag, and yeah. So we have this weird situation where Dynamesh is on and Sculptris Pro is on. Usually it's not the case. So what I will do, I will turn off Dynamesh, and actually it's it was the only purpose to use Dynamesh was to be able to weld everything together. So now we can start sculpting and refining the mesh as it is. Okay, this is usually about time and finding the right references, because not all the references are the same, and just patience to do. Looking for the exact angles, BCB, and add some more. BDS, Debian Standard, adding up. BCB, and filling this a little bit more, BDS, and add edges right around. Okay, so practically that's how it goes. If you think you're reached to a point where you want to weld all the things together, B and V, and you're done with the basic settings, you can actually combine them and weld them together by merging everything down and or Boolean. I think in this case I will choose and use Boolean. So we have all the meshes going, and you can refine these before you make the Boolean, so you can add more and more things to the game, more and more details. But you will reach a point where you want to switch to something else and make it a little bit easier to manage. So what I will do is subtool. We have all the subtools here. You can press, you can save it, or just press number 9 to a quick save before you do the Boolean operation. And now Sculptris Pro, BCV. I will turn off Sculptris and go with Live Boolean to create a union mesh. So I'm not adjusting anything. I'm just looking for a whole Boolean operation. Live Boolean is on, and now we're going Boolean, make Boolean mesh. We'll recalculate things. And union remeshing in progress, it says in the top left. And we have to wait, but yeah, finally it looks like it has created this U-mesh. And what I like to do is usually keep it as it is and duplicate, and go into geometry and the ZBrush and set it to 5 is usually too high, and set it to 3 and hit ZBrush and look for it. And I don't know how that will look, but see ZBrush. Okay. Sooner or later, let me isolate, solo, Shift F. This is how it looks. Oh, it's not the nicest mesh. I've seen better things, but it's not that wrong either. So here it looks a little bit messy. Maybe I can use some smoothing to remove that distortion and go back from solo mode. Actually, you don't have to go back from solo mode, because if it is visible and you are in solo, projection still works and it will pick up the things better. So what I did, I was smoothing out things. The vertices collapsed a little bit, but in the moment when I pressed project all, they were catching up with the original mesh, and project all can recognize even if this mesh is in solo mode. Okay, visibility, and if you turn off the visibility, you can't use the project. But if the visibility is on and solo mode is active, you can still use project all. And I'm pressing Ctrl D and project all, and Ctrl D and project all. And as you see, it's about this amount, and Ctrl D again, and project all. It's picking up more and more details, and yeah, that's it practically. And you can go in and smooth out and create individual little differences. B, C, L, clay brush to clean up transitions. It's a vast way with light strokes. I had some pretty strength, and based on your reference meshes, you can really build this up, really clean this up, and build it up for the reference. Alright, so that's the one way amongst the many ways to create a hand in ZBrush. Alright, thank you for watching. I hope you found some useful tips in it, and see you next time. Goodbye.